Welcome back, everyone. Pal Ponder on Weather here. In this update, we're tracking this powerful upper level low that's just now kind of starting to come together. It will be the culprit of two pieces of energy. The first one, you can see just a steady stream of mainly all rain, but it's the second piece of energy that I'm kind of getting concerned about. That is the one that's going to be digging. And as the low level jet starts to dig into the overnight hours, those could produce some big time hell producing thunderstorms down there in Texas, and that could be the culprit of bringing some severe weather across the deep south, and also the culprit of some heavier snows in the coming days as this low pressure center continues to deepen and strengthen. So I appreciate all my subscribers out there. I would love to reach 250,000 subscribers by the end of the month. If you are new to the channel, I put out a lot of content. I'm pretty much here on a daily basis, putting out about 27 videos a month to keep you well ahead of the storm. So let's break this thing down for you and dive into the details. And here's the overall map of what's happening right here. You can see there's some colder air associated with this low pressure center that's bringing some winter weather advisories even far south into the Tucson area. That swings into the Albuquerque region, into Santa Fe. But there's the newly warned, upgraded winter storm warnings there into the Texas Panhandle around the Amarillo region. But even further south, they do have those winter storm watches in place as far south as into Lubbock, and that will swing even into the Wichita Falls region. But look further south, that is the area that we're concerned about with this first wave of energy. This is going to be mainly an all rain event, mainly throughout the afternoon time frame. But you can see further south, they do in fact have an upgraded slight risk for severe weather. I think this gets going into the overnight hours, likely after midnight tonight, as this powerful low-level jet will continue to dip and amplify. That is going to be the culprit of likely going to bring some supercell thunderstorms, and those could contain some larger hail, some isolated tornadoes, and this will continue to push off to the northeast as the snow will start to fall up here into the Texas Panhandle. But for today, with that first wave of energy, like I mentioned, it's mainly just an all rain, and it's going to be a chillier rain across these regions back into Texas, a little bit warmer rain as you feed off into the southeast, still in those within that warm sector. But it's the second piece of energy where there's just now kind of starting to come together up there into New Mexico and southeastern portions of Colorado there. That will start to trend into the Texas Panhandle. You can see there's really not much snow there as of yet. This is this afternoon. This likely gets going into tonight, especially overnight heading into Sunday morning. So looking at the overall satellite picture as we get deeper into the night, this is that first wave of energy that will be moving across into the east. But it's the second piece of energy. Look at the blow up of convection. This is around 1 o'clock in the morning down there into southwestern portions of Texas. That's where they do have a hatched risk in place. Could see some larger hail up to golf ball size, maybe even larger, with some of these isolated supercells into the overnight hours. So this would be an overnight event as the secondary low pressure center will really start to get its act together, as we've got snow will start to crank up there into the Texas Panhandle. And then we've got severe weather we've got to be concerned about on the initial stages of this event down there into southwestern portions in central Texas as we get into the overnight hours. So if you look at the latest high resolution guidance of what we're kind of talking about, here's around 1 o'clock in the morning. You can see the San Angelo region, and down there, these are these isolated bubblers that could start to turn nasty down there with some larger hail as this continues to be lifting further northeast into the Abilene region. But it's this area down here in southwestern portions of Texas that I'm mainly concerned about for some larger hail and some better probabilities of updrafts, that which includes some possibilities of an isolated tornado or two into the overnight hours. And going into that Sunday morning, time frame, this is where the low pressure is, right? So we got this, pretty significant low pressure. This will be the culprit of kind of the dirty side on the southeastern flank side. That's where we're going to have some severe storms down there in southeast Texas into the Sunday time frame. That will shift off into the deep south. It includes those Dixie Alley regions into the southeast. But then look at all the snow that really starts to deepen and strengthen over the Texas Panhandle, and this is going to be a high water content value event. So the temperatures are going to be falling with a dynamic cooling type setup. So this atmosphere could pick up some pretty significant totals before it's all said and done, especially around the Texas Panhandle, right around where that low pressure is. But then as we get deeper into that Sunday time frame, we're going to be talking about that severe storm. So this is your Sunday outlook. We've got the overnight setup for Saturday into Texas, and that's going to be shifting off into that Sunday time frame into the southeast portions of Texas, getting into Louisiana as well as into Mississippi and Alabama. Here is your tornado risk as of right now. Looking at the latest high resolution guidance, this will likely be shifting a little bit further north and likely be expanded with some of the short range guidance that's just now starting to come together. But this is the area that's more favorable on the southern flank of that low level jet that we've got to be concerned about all modes of severe storms. And yes, that does include some isolated tornadoes. And don't let your guard down. I mean, this is a 2% and a 5%. Here lately, we've seen those 2% really start to come to fruition. We saw it the last week in Texas. We saw it in Wisconsin just the other day with that EF2 tornado. So yeah, don't let your guard down, because this is a powerful mid-level cyclone that's coming through. It's got a lot of rotation in the upper levels, and that can transfer down to the surface. That I'm definitely concerned about with this setup. And what I'm really concerned about is the latest run of the high resolution guidance, where we can see some of these helicity tracks and some of these updrafts. This would include the potential, the greater potential, where you could see some of that larger hail in an isolated tornado or two right in the heart of southwestern portions of Texas into central Texas. That feeds into East Texas. And this is kind of hinting at that line would shift just a tad bit further north. So those areas into Shreveport, those areas into northern portions of Louisiana, into central Mississippi, into Alabama, heading into Georgia, kind of be on high alert during the day on Sunday, as you've got a favorable event. And this would likely be upgraded to an enhanced risk with some of the newest data that I'm kind of seeing. So, but here's the cold side, and you got all the darker blues. I mean, it could be coming down pretty good up there into the Texas Panhandle and into the overnight hours, and that shifts into southeastern Oklahoma. Some of these areas could pick up 4 or 5, maybe 6 inches of snow, and that lighter amounts as it gets into the Wichita Falls, as they start to get a changeover from that heavier rain to some snow into the overnight. We're probably talking after 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night on Sunday night. But in the overnight hours, some of this, again, with that dynamic cooling type process, would shift into central and eastern portions of Oklahoma. So yes, I'm talking those areas into Oklahoma City, into the Tulsa region, would end as kind of a wet, big, fluffy snow that comes into the overnight hours. Probably not sticking to the surface or anything, but because the temperatures are going to be actually above freezing, it would likely be snowing in this area, as this continues to move across. But there's, as you wake up on Monday morning, right? So that snow continues to fall across a good part of Oklahoma and reaches those far northern interiors around the Red River area. They did include that winter storm watch up there. That does include the Wichita Falls region. I think right now that snow maybe reaches maybe a Graham to a Gainesville line. And would all just be kind of rain as you shift into far eastern portions of southeast Texas. But either way, we're not talking about like any significant accumulations, especially for these areas as it continues to shift off and push off to the east. But overall, here's your winter storm impacts for the next 3 days. So we've got the storm right now that's just now coming to fruition. They've got the minor and moderate impacts for travel impacts with this snow that's going to continue to fall over the next 3 days. But look at some of these areas around the Texas Panhandle, right where the center of that low pressure is. Yeah, we're talking moderate to even major impacts with this particular setup. And then as this continues to move through Oklahoma, we've got, slight to moderate risk for, minor impacts as this will move through up into the up northeast through southern portions of Missouri, going through southern portions of Indiana and Ohio, and eventually head into Pennsylvania during the day on that Tuesday, Monday night, Tuesday timeframe with their own significant, snowstorm. Because looking at the latest guidance, this vorticity is kind of taking the trend of the GFS now that the shorter range guidances are kind of starting to come in within range. This low pressure center does in fact look to slow down a little bit. That definitely means we could be having a higher impact event for the Northeast, but also pull out some of that snow for those areas into Kentucky as well as into Ohio. So it is likely we're going to be starting to see a little bit of a changeover there into Kentucky on Monday night time frame. That blends into southern portions of Illinois, get into Indiana as well as Ohio. But then once it gets up here into Pennsylvania, this could be even some heavier snowfall totals. Remember in Pittsburgh, you were just like 61 degrees for a high the other day? Now we're talking to snow flying as that low pressure center will really start to set up shop offshore. And as it does, it will continue to pick up steam and fall into that area of freezing temperatures. So the temperatures, we're not going to have to be concerned about whether it's going to be, rain or snow. It's going to be cold enough to be all snow. And a lot of these areas across the Ohio Valley, as well as in the Northeast, widespread 20s as you wake up on Tuesday morning with that low pressure center just hanging off the coast there. And that's a significant event potentially coming ashore into the Northeast with those areas in the I-95 corridor. So yeah, we're talking at least several inches. There's probabilities that some of these areas could pick up 4, 5, 6 inches with this deal as this comes in on Tuesday. Those areas in New Jersey, into Long Island, into Massachusetts, and Connecticut, and Rhode Island. That looks to be a favorable area, which always does include pretty much the entire state of Pennsylvania there. And even going into Tuesday afternoon, the low pressure center is still hanging out there. So overall, we're looking through a band of snow that would likely kind of train over this area for, about 18 to 24 hours. And we could pick up some, healthy, decent snowfall totals from this particular setup before it's all said and done. So let's really break this thing down for you. Here's the latest SREF guidance. This is your short range blended model guidance of the high resolution guidance. Definitely gives you a true depiction of how this would likely unfold. Those areas in red, that's 100% probability of seeing at least an inch of rainfall. So this is an inch of snowfall from this setup. So it's pretty high probabilities to see at least an inch of snow from this setup. A little bit lighter amounts as you head into 3 inches, but still some pretty decent totals and higher probabilities, especially across the Texas Panhandle and through into the Northeast as well as into the Mid-Atlantic here, with at least 50 to 60% probability of those areas seeing at least 3 inches of snowfall. And here's the 6-inch totals, right? So these are the probabilities for 6-inch. Notice where that low pressure is, right in the Texas Panhandle. You still got 70, 80, almost 90% probability some of these areas pick up at least 6 inches of snowfall right there into the Texas Panhandle, southeastern portions of Oklahoma there, and then even into the Northeast, right? Even to the Mid-Atlantic, you're still picking up 40, 50% areas that could pick up at least 6 inches of snowfall. So that's definitely a decent snow totals coming out of that area heading into that Tuesday time frame. But look at a foot. All right, it's not stopping there. Right around that low pressure center, we could see some isolated spots. It has a pretty high probability, 80% high probability. Some of these areas could pick up a foot of snow in some of these isolated spots into the Texas Panhandle. That's the latest high resolution guidance. And if you look at the overall where the rain and where the precipitation will be, you've got the severe stuff and you've got the heavier rain. So this is pretty healthy dose of rain, a good 1 to 2, likely some 3-inch spots across Texas. But once you get into Louisiana and this corridor in the red there, that's easily 2 to 4 inches. So we do have some isolated flooding concerns and definitely some heavier rains with that convective banding. This will be your totals over the next between now and that Wednesday morning time frame. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch my next update. Wire protect you before and after the storm.